when Black Star pulsed. The sky over the ancient temple was a sea of stars, shimmering with the eternal glow of countless suns. The structure, built by hands long turned to dust, was perched on the edge of a desolate mountain range, far from any civilization. Here, the Order of the Black Star gathered, their lives devoted to unraveling the mysteries of the universe. Acolyte Elara knelt on the cold stone floor, her breath misting in the frigid air. Before her, the elder spoke in a low, resonant voice, intoning the ancient rites that had been passed down through millennia. She listened intently, knowing that tonight she would undertake the most sacred and dangerous ritual of the Order, the communion with the universal consciousness. For centuries, the Order had meditated on the messages encoded in the pulsars and black holes scattered throughout the cosmos. They believed these cosmic phenomena were more than mere celestial bodies. They were repositories of knowledge left by an ancient superior intelligence. This intelligence, which the Order referred to as the Primordial Consciousness, had encoded warnings and wisdom within the very fabric of the universe. Elara, the elder said, breaking her reverie, tonight you will connect with the Black Star. You will seek the message hidden in its pulse. Elara nodded, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. She had trained for this moment her entire life. The Black Star, a pulsar near the heart of a distant galaxy, emitted regular bursts of radiation, like the heartbeat of some cosmic entity. The Order believed these pulses were a form of communication, a message that required intense meditation to decipher. The elder led Elara to the inner sanctum, a circular chamber with a domed ceiling that opened to the heavens. In the center of the room was a large, intricately carved stone basin filled with a dark, viscous liquid. This was the essence, a substance the Order believed to be the distilled consciousness of the cosmos. "Drink," the elder instructed, handing her a small silver cup. Elara took the cup with trembling hands and drank the essence. It was bitter and thick, coating her throat as she swallowed. Almost immediately, she felt a strange warmth spreading through her body, followed by a sense of dislocation, as if her mind was being gently lifted from her physical form. "Lie down and close your eyes," the elder whispered. Elara obeyed, lying on the stone floor and closing her eyes. The warmth intensified, and she felt herself drifting, as if carried by an unseen current. The elder's voice faded, replaced by a low, rhythmic thrum that seemed to emanate from the very core of the universe. She was no longer in the temple. She was floating in a vast starless void, surrounded by the cold emptiness of space. Before her, the Black Star pulsed, its radiation washing over her in waves. She could feel the presence of the Primordial Consciousness, an ancient, unfathomable intelligence that dwarfed her own. "Seek the message," the elder's voice echoed in her mind. "Decipher the pulse." Elara focused on the pulses, letting their rhythm guide her thoughts. Each burst of radiation was a syllable, a fragment of a cosmic language that transcended time and space. She felt herself being drawn deeper into the consciousness of the universe, her mind expanding to encompass the vastness of the cosmos. For what felt like an eternity, she floated in the void, her consciousness merging with the pulses of the Black Star. She saw visions of ancient civilizations, long-extinct species, and cataclysmic events that had shaped the cosmos. She felt the presence of other beings, distant and alien, each connected to the Primordial Consciousness. And then she heard it, a voice, ancient and cold, speaking in a language she could barely comprehend. The words resonated in her mind, filling her with a sense of dread. "Warning! The balance is at risk. Heed this message. Preserve existence." The visions became more chaotic, filled with images of destruction and decay. She saw stars collapsing into black holes, entire galaxies consumed by darkness. She felt the weight of countless lives, each one a fleeting spark in the vast expanse of the universe. The message was clear. The universe was in danger, and the balance must be preserved. But how? She was just a single human, insignificant in the grand scheme of the cosmos. What could she possibly do to prevent the impending catastrophe? The pulse of the black star intensified, overwhelming her senses. She felt her mind fracturing, unable to contain the vast knowledge being forced upon her. She screamed, but no sound emerged in the void. Her consciousness was being torn apart, scattered across the cosmos like stardust. And then suddenly, she was back in the temple, gasping for breath. The elder was kneeling beside her, a look of concern etched on his weathered face. "What did you see?" he asked urgently. Elara struggled to form words, her mind still reeling from the experience. "The balance, the universe is in danger. We must preserve existence." The elder nodded solemnly. "We have known this for centuries. The Black Star's message has been deciphered by many before you, but the solution remains elusive. We are but fragments of the primordial consciousness, each one struggling to understand the whole." Elara's heart sank. She had hoped that her communion with the Black Star would provide answers, but instead it had only deepened the mystery. She felt a profound sense of hopelessness, as if the weight of the entire universe was pressing down on her. "We must continue our work," the elder said. "The Order's duty is to seek the truth, no matter how elusive. Each of us is a piece of the puzzle, and together we may one day understand the whole." Elara nodded, though her heart was heavy with doubt. She had seen the vastness of the cosmos and felt the insignificance of her own existence. How could they, mere mortals, hope to comprehend the infinite? Days turned into weeks, and Elara continued her meditations, seeking answers in the pulses of the Black Star. She read the ancient texts of the Order, hoping to find clues that had been overlooked, but the more she learned, the more she realized how little they understood. One night, as she was meditating in the sanctum, she felt a familiar warmth spreading through her body. She closed her eyes and found herself once again floating in the void, the Black Star pulsing before her. This time the pulses were different. They were faster, more urgent. She focused on them, letting their rhythm guide her thoughts. And then she saw it, a vision of a vast, pulsating network stretching across the universe. Each pulse was a node, a point of connection in the web of the primordial consciousness. She realized with a start that the Order's meditations were not just attempts to decipher the messages. They were part of the message. Each meditation, each connection was a way of strengthening the web, preserving the balance of the universe. She felt a surge of hope. Perhaps they were not as insignificant as she had thought. Perhaps their efforts, however small, were part of a greater whole. But then the vision shifted, and she saw something that filled her with dread. The web was fraying, its nodes blinking out one by one. The balance was being disrupted, and the primordial consciousness was weakening. She heard the voice again, cold and ancient. "The balance is at risk. Heed this message. Preserve existence." The pulses of the Black Star grew stronger, overwhelming her senses. She felt her mind fracturing once again, her consciousness scattering across the cosmos. But this time, she did not scream. She embraced the void, letting it consume her. When she awoke, she was lying on the floor of the sanctum, the elder kneeling beside her. "I understand now," she said, her voice trembling. "We are part of the web. Our meditations are not just attempts to decipher the messages. They are part of the message. We must continue our work, or the balance will be lost." The elder nodded. "Yes, Elara, this is the truth that we have sought for so long. Each of us is a fragment of the primordial consciousness, and together we must preserve the balance." Elara felt a sense of purpose, but also a deep, abiding fear. The task before them was immense, and the stakes were unimaginably high. They were but tiny sparks in the vast darkness of the cosmos, struggling to keep the flame of existence alive. As she continued her meditations, she felt the presence of the primordial consciousness more keenly. She saw the web of connections, each one a lifeline in the fragile tapestry of the universe. She understood now that their work was vital, but also that it was endless. The balance could never be fully restored. It could only be maintained moment by moment, pulse by pulse. Years passed, and Elara grew old, her hair turning silver and her body frail. But she never wavered in her dedication to the Order. She continued her meditations even as her strength waned, knowing that her efforts were part of a greater whole. One night, as she lay on her deathbed, she felt the familiar warmth spreading through her body. She closed her eyes and found herself once again floating in the void, the black star pulsing before her. This time the pulses were slow and steady, like the heartbeat of a dying star. She felt the presence of the primordial consciousness, ancient and vast, encompassing all that was and ever would be. She saw the web of connections, frayed and tattered, but still holding together. She felt the weight of countless lives, each one a fleeting spark in the darkness. She knew that her own spark was about to flicker out, but she took comfort in knowing that others would continue the work. "Preserve the balance," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the void. "Preserve existence." As her consciousness faded, she felt a profound sense of peace. She was a part of the universe, a fragment of the primordial consciousness, and her efforts, however small, had contributed to the greater whole. Her last thought was of the black star, pulsing in the darkness, a beacon of hope in an indifferent universe. And then she was gone. Her spark extinguished, her consciousness merging with the infinite. The elder stood by her bedside, tears in his eyes. He knew that Elara's work was done, but the task before them was far from over. The balance must be preserved, pulse by pulse, moment by moment. As he looked up at the night sky, he saw the black star, its pulses faint but steady. He felt a deep, abiding connection to the universe, a part of the web of existence. He knew that their efforts, however small, were part of something greater. And so the Order of the Black Star continued their meditations, their lives devoted to preserving the fragile balance of the cosmos. They were but tiny sparks in the vast darkness, struggling to keep the flame of existence alive. For in the end, they knew that the universe was indifferent, and their efforts, however noble, were but a fleeting attempt to stave off the inevitable oblivion. But they persisted, for they were part of the primordial consciousness, and their work, however small, was a testament to the enduring spirit of life in an uncaring cosmos. The black star pulsed on, a silent witness to their efforts, a beacon of hope in a universe that cared not for their struggles. And so they meditated, pulse by pulse, moment by moment, preserving the balance, even as the darkness encroached ever closer. In the end, they were but fragments of a greater whole, their lives a brief flicker in the vast expanse of time. But in that flicker, they found meaning, however fleeting, in the endless dance of the cosmos.